Hello, YouTube. So I went back the other day and I listened to a podcast where Kevin Smith is talking to Grant Morrison. They did a few podcasts together. Grant Morrison is a famous comic book artist. And he's sort of talking about, Grant Morrison gets on the topic of why Batman appeals to us so much. And he starts to talk about Christ, right? And what makes Christ appealing, right? And this got me thinking about apologetics in general, because in some way, the best critique that I can give of apologetics as a discipline, or how it's practiced, is that there's something horrifically sterile about it, right? And the thesis that I want to advance is that Grant Morrison here, who's not a Christian, is a better apologist than any apologist that anyone's touted out, simply by how he frames the issue, right? And so I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think that's the case, right?
Basically, the thing that Christ is God made flesh, and you think about that seriously, right? The idea of Christ, whether he's historical, all that, it doesn't matter. It's the same as Batman. It's not historical. It's a story. It makes us feel something. It presses a fucking human button that's really important. And the button Christ presses is basically this. They took God and they nailed him to wood. You know, so basically what they did, took the most spiritual thing you can imagine, the highest, most abstract, most beautiful, light-filled conception beyond, and they nailed it to wood. Boom, boom, boom.
The savagery of man.
Because it felt it. Because, like I said earlier, you can't be God without knowing what it feels like to be nailed to wood. Spartacus was nailed to wood, so you're not God until you know what Spartacus felt. So, that's what I mean. It's like you're not God until you know what it feels like to be a mouse caught in a trap and have your neck broken. You're not God until you know what it feels like to die in a concentration camp, because until then your knowledge isn't complete, right? But Christ, the great symbol that Christ is, Christ says that no matter how much you're hurting, no matter how bad the flesh is crushing you and destroying you, no matter what the disease is, no matter how old you are, no matter how much you're losing it, I am here with you suffering. And that's the beauty of Christ, right? That's what Christ is. I'm here with you, no matter how dark it gets. I'm at the darkest. I'm hung here, coughing my fucking lungs up with you. Right? And that's what it means for flesh. That's what spirit is crucified to matter, and it has to suffer like we do, and that's how it understands how we feel.
There's something extremely beautiful about how Morrison is able to articulate what Christ is. If I were a Christian, right? I think the way that I would approach it, and I think the more effective way to approach it than the way it is approached, is to say something like, my religion is an experience that I participate in as a human being, right? And that participation is something that I find value in. And it's something that I find edifying. It's something that I feel makes me more human. So immediately, the whole conversation turns into a conversation about what does my, as the apologist, religion mean to me, right? What does it do for me? Why is it that I find this? Because I assume that someone like William Lane Craig, right, or Inspiring Philosophy, or any of these people, I assume that there's a real sort of emotional core to their relationship with their religion. There's something very human and there's something very moving in their participation with religion. I mean, they wouldn't defend their religion so vehemently if this wasn't the case, right? So clearly there's some kind of button being pushed. Clearly this narrative, right, resonates with them at some profound level. Now I want to hear about that, right? Why should I, as an atheist, participate in this experience that you call religion? And it seems like the starting place for doing apologetics shouldn't be what attempting to establish the factuality of the thing, but rather to establish the beauty of the thing. A lot of the conversation between atheists and Christians over the past, since 9/11, has very much been a battle over the soul of Christianity, right? What does it, or whatever religion, right? But tend to talk in a Christian framework. What is the soul of Christianity? What is the essence of it? What is the real content of Christianity? Kalam, like the Kalam cosmological argument, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, doesn't tell me anything about being a religious person, right? It doesn't tell me anything about how or why one might be inclined to make such an argument in the first place. What is it about being a Christian that gets you off? When Morrison starts talking about, you take this the highest and most abstract and beautiful thing, and you nail it to wood, right? There's a certain emotional content to that kind of statement. There's a certain kind of force to that kind of statement, right? That I think impacts people, right? And all of a sudden you hear a line like that, and all of a sudden Christianity seems to be interesting. The voice of Christianity seems to have something to say all of a sudden. Before you can have somebody convert to Christianity, you have to start by saying that Christianity has something to say, right? There is some value to this thing. A lot of us atheists intuitively, maybe not explicitly, but intuitively understand that, I shouldn't really use the word atheism here, but let's say materialism and humanism contain a heroism, right? Out of dead matter can rise the most beautiful things in existence. This is a very heroic notion, right? We are rising apes, right? Life and the universe can go from being something chaotic, something violent, right, into spawning life, right? And life can go from something sort of dumb, right? Single-celled organisms and stuff, right? Can go from basically chemical reactions turning into me, right? Turning into a human who all of a sudden can contemplate these things and find joy in the contemplation of these issues. There's something really beautiful and heroic in that story, right? In that narrative. There's a line from Julian Barnes where he says something like, "What's a violin made out of? Bits of wood and sheep intestines, right? Does that demean and banalize the music? No, it exalts it even further." Right? And that's the I think idea at the heart of any soulful materialism is the notion that there is some kind of hope, right? Because no matter what the conditions are, something beautiful can arise out of them. When you delete God from the picture, all of a sudden we as humans have this responsibility and the possibility of taking up a kind of stewardship over ourselves and over the world and doing something positive with it, right? We can take wretched conditions and we can build cities, right? We can build empires. We can create art and beauty and music and tell stories and do all of these things that make life worth living. That story, right, is something that's tremendously beautiful and empowering and wonderful, right? The material world is not this boring thing. It's actually something that's very alive and very beautiful and very interesting, and it's something that has a harrowing aspect to it. It's something that there is beauty and meaning in investigating and learning about and discovering. This is what the great counter-apologists have done, from Nietzsche to Sartre to Marx to whatever, right? Very good at taking all of the implications from deleting God from the picture and constructing a narrative that's compelling, right? Now, I think that there is, obviously, by the fact that I've played that Grant Morrison clip, right? I think that there is a way to talk about Christianity in an aesthetic way. And very often the Christians that I tend to talk about on this channel do exactly that. Someone like Kierkegaard or someone like Chesterton or whoever, right? They're capable of talking about their religion in startling ways, and very beautiful ways, and very aesthetic ways, and all of this. You get the sense that there is something genuinely human at work that they're trying to communicate. Right? Now, when you take that and you stack it against, premise one, everything that begins to exist has a cause, etc., right? Clearly, there's something flaccid in that sort of Craigian style apologetics. Clearly, there's something pale in this, and really, you get the sense that someone like Craig is taking an experience, the experience of Christianity, of being a Christian, and that's very personal and emotional and beautiful and precious to them, right? Deeply precious. Something that they want to defend, something that excites them and makes them want to write books, right? And all of this. And they are taking everything personal out of it. They are doing a better job of making Christianity something dull and irrelevant and uninteresting than any atheist could do. I would not want to go to Craig's church. You know what I mean? I don't feel like there's an invitation to be a participant, right? I don't feel like something is being presented to me that's new and interesting and vital, right? That excites me. This is, I think, the real death of Christianity. Instead of talking about whether the resurrection happened and pointing to sort of methodologies associated with history and all of this to try and establish the fact of this event, which I don't think can be done. I think it's much more interesting to talk about what the resurrection means, right? Here you have a man who conquers death, right? The profundity of that idea is tremendous, and yet, you want to talk about multiple independent sources, blah 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 blah. There's a literary aspect to Christianity that's been totally deleted from the apologetic world in the past 50 years. And the absence of that is the thing that's ultimately going to kill Christianity, I think.